very good morning, everyone. It is such a beautiful Saturday morning and a very warm welcome to join us for this particular workshop, or rather I will call it a meeting too, all right, to learn from our speaker, Sunni Brown. My name is Sylvia. What a great pleasure for me to be a host for today. Now, before we start, we'd like to run through a few housekeeping methods with you, just to ensure that each and every one of you are going to have a great webinar experience. Now, the microphone has been disabled until the Q&A session starts, but you know what? You are welcome to switch on your video when the speaker is speaking. Now, if you have any burning questions throughout the presentation, please do feel free to post them in a Q&A box located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Now, you can also vote on any questions that interest you. Question with the highest number of votes will stand a better chance to be answered by our speaker later on during the Q&A session. We will be beginning shortly right now. Once we're ready, everyone, we're going to kickstart immediately right here. Right? There you are. I have more people joining me. And of course, people who have just joined us, very good morning to each and every one of you. Welcome to Get Unstuck. Use visual thinking to think differently. Now, this is, of course, proudly brought to you by the good people from the National Library Board. And once again, my name is Sylvia. I'll be your MC for today. Now, today, we are very, very honored to have with us Miss Sunni Brown, who will be taking us through two quick and powerful practices. And of course, we're going to marvel at how visual thinking can expand our minds, not only that, broaden our perception and give us more edge around how we approach life and work. Our human mind is designed to avoid uncertainty. Now, it assesses our environment and summarizes it to take actions. The good news is this keeps us alive. The bad news is they can also keep us stuck in skewed points of view, limiting beliefs, and habitual ways of thinking. Therefore, if we hope to become more adaptable at problem solving, innovating, analyzing, or frankly, being a more decent human being, we need antidotes to these distortions. Now, this is where thinking visually becomes a surprising ally. Now, something as simple as a rudimentary doodle, yes, you hear me right, when combined with facilitation games and thought experimentation, can immediately liberate us from cognitive loops that we find ourselves in. Now, Miss Sunni Brown is a social entrepreneur who has been named one of the 100 most creative people in business and one of the 10 most creative people on Twitter by Fast Company. She's a best-selling author of Game Storming and the Doodle Revolution, and not only that, a keynote speaker, expert meeting facilitator, book coach, and a dedicated Zen student. Her TED Talks, oh my, I follow her on TED Talks right there, and has drawn more than 1.5 million views, and her work has been featured in the New York Times, the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal, Time, Wired, as well as being featured twice on CBS Sunday Morning and the Today Show. Her forthcoming book is called Being Confident in Any Situation and When It Matters Most. I can't wait to return, of course, to learn from her too. And before we bring her on screen, we'd like to let you know that we'll be using the Q&A box located at the bottom, all right? That's where please do feel free to post your questions, and you can vote on any of the questions too. Once again, questions with a higher vote will have a greater chance to be answered by our speaker. Now, without much further ado, let us invite Miss Sunni Brown, author of Doodle Revolution, TED speaker, and founder, Sunni Brown, Inc. Sunni, are you ready? I'm going to pass the screen over to you.
Yes, I am ready. Thank you. Sylvia, thank you so much for your energy, because I need it, because I don't know if you guys know this, but it's 11 p.m. my time. And so I can feel my mind like wanting to go to bed. So I need you guys to participate as best you can, just to take pity on me and keep me awake, and also to accelerate your learning process. Okay, so there's a win-win. Okay. I don't know how many else of you are at nighttime, but thank you for coming either way. And so I'm going to share my screen, and then we can just start the process, because I only have you for about 50 minutes. And there's a couple of activities I want us to do, okay? And also, as Sylvia said, please feel free to ask me anything in the chat really throughout the duration of the experience. I'm not worried about that being distracting for me personally. So, and it's actually helpful to see what kinds of questions we have. So can you all confirm, like give me a thumbs up if you can see my my opening slide?
Yes, absolutely. We can see it.
Okay, very cool. So
thank you.
Thank you. I chose the topic Get Unstuck because, as Sylvia mentioned, that there's a lot of ways to use visual thinking to support you from like retreading the same paths. And I don't know how many of you are visual thinkers. I know that my friend Munying Lao is here, and I know he's a wonderful, incredible visual thinker. I'm so glad you're here. And so, but it's a really powerful companion. Okay, and so that's why I want to talk about it today. Next slide, let's see. Okay, so just real quick. So what I do is I'm an author, but I'm also a facilitator, and I use these 4 methodologies to support groups and individuals. Oh, people are raising their hand. Yes, wonderful. Are they saying like, can we go to bed also? But I support groups and individuals in thinking through challenging complex material using these methodologies, okay? And today we're gonna focus more specifically on visual thinking, and I have 2 activities for you to do, and we'll talk about that in a second. But just for now, take in this definition, okay, of visual thinking, just sort of absorb it. So you can see it's really the intention of it is to become a friend and a companion in your thinking process. And it's just the intention is to explore information in as many ways as possible. Information has, it's endless, and life is very complicated. So visual language and visual thinking helps us to sort of structure it and make it more meaningful and actionable. Yeah. And also, so FYI, the brain loves visual information. The brain is in love with it. So this is a visual representation of your cerebral cortex, which is we're all mammals. And so the outermost part of your mammalian brain is called the cerebral cortex. And it's essentially responsible for processing a lot of the sensory information that we get from interacting in the world. And 75% approximately is devoted to processing visual information relative to the other senses. So the brain heavily prioritizes visual information, and that's pretty universal. So it's a language that's actually very native to us. And so it's when you allow the brain to play with it, it really it livens it up. So for those of you who love to know what we're doing, because we're totally on a trust journey right now. I know you don't know me, and we're going to do some interaction and play some games. So I'm just going to give you the agenda. So the lowdown for today is that we're going to very quickly, I'm going to take you through like a whirlwind tour of visual thinking, because ultimately what I want to get you into is the activities, because I think that's the most interesting thing and the most experiential thing. But this is the path, okay? So take a screenshot if you're one of those people that needs to know the path, okay? And also, I'm going to preempt this right now. There's going to be a lot of you who are already maybe having a panic attack about drawing. So you don't have to share your work, but also just so you know, I actually can't draw either. And I know that some of my friends that are here would protest that, but it is actually correct that I personally cannot draw in a faithful way. Like I cannot represent reality in a meaningful, faithful way, and I don't need to. So visual thinking is actually about using really simple visual language in order to understand and engage with material. It's not about creating art. If you are an artist, more power to you, that's awesome, but it's not essential. And I will tell you the keys to the kingdom, okay? So this is what I call the visual alphabet. So if you guys have, would you do me a favor, and if you don't already have this, please go ahead and get pen and paper or marker and paper, something that you can draw on. And this is, you can start drawing the visual alphabet if you want, you don't have to, but I just want you to know that this is as hard as it gets in terms of visual language. And so what the expectations are for visual thinking, and you don't need to recreate this alphabet. I can share it with you in the slide deck later, but these are the keys. It's like the DNA of visual language, and it's really is this simple, okay? So here's your first little primer activity. So are y'all ready? Like, let me see. I want to find your faces. Let me see if I can I'm gonna look down. Anna, you have your hand raised. Are all the people with their hand raised, are y'all doing okay? Are y'all having the greatest time right now? Feel free to ask me anything, okay? Reminder, you're welcome to ask me anything. So the first activity is to draw a coffee cup. Oh, Antonio, I see you. How are you? Nice to see you. So draw an object in your environment, right? You see how I'm breaking down this object using very, very simple forms, visual forms and fields. So just find any object in your environment and just take a quick stab at it, you know, like a 10-second slapdash drawing, okay? And that'll get you prime. I'm trying to prime the mind in order to wake up the visual cortex. Because I don't know, y'all are probably awake. Maybe my visual cortex is the only one asleep. But so you get the idea, right, from this. And if you guys are rapid drawers, draw other objects in your environment. Draw your glasses, draw my glasses, but just break it down in accordance to these really simple rules. And if you feel compelled to chat your images, I think you can. I'm not totally sure. Or you can hold them up in the camera and let other people see them. For those of you who aren't that shy. I'm always wondering about the shy people. I'm like, should I terrorize them by making them have to participate? I'm not a mean teacher. I'm not a mean teacher. Cool. So you get the idea, okay? So here's the reason I even want to expose you to the visual alphabet, okay? These are what are called thinking moves. So I am a big fan of supporting the thinking process and really like the full-bodied thinking engagement process. So not just like honing it in this little dot here, but actually moving it through the entire organism. So I call it experiential learning, okay? And so there's these things called thinking moves that are metacognitive. And visual thinking is like your best friend related to these thinking moves. So for example, right, if you're an educator or if you're a student or you're a constant learner, wondering and asking questions is a thinking move. It's a way to investigate and use your imagination just by asking weird, provocative questions about subject matter, okay? There's going to be 6 applications. Considering different points of view. So visual thinking has this wonderful quality of allowing us to actually actively experience the world from another person's perspective and then see it. So in that way, it's very transformative because you start to recognize that everybody relates to even the same thing quite differently. And you may know that conceptually, but visual thinking actually helps you know that experientially. It's a really powerful thinking move. Building explanations and interpretations. So helping people understand, like making a hypothesis about something and helping people understand how that thing works. And then comparing your model of reality to somebody else's model of reality. Also really powerful. This one I love for some of you who are systems thinkers or process thinkers or engineers. So like slowing down, you know, visual thinking is this wonderful companion for slowing down and paying really close attention. And I know that's also true if you're an artist and you are drawing something in real life or doing figure drawing, you get very intricate and close to the material because you slow down and actually try to describe it like a scientist, you know. Also reasoning with evidence. So not just like making up a story about reality and then assuming that it's true, but actually making a robust case for something to be true and comparing that case to other people's ideas. And then finally, this is my favorite, and this is where we're going with the activities, which is revealing complexity and going below the surface. So that's kind of why I use the term get unstuck, because I think, no, I don't, this isn't my opinion about the brain. This is just true about the brain. The brain is like, it's a pattern recognition machine. And so it's very interested in like snap summarizing. And that's what Sylvia read in that intro. The brain really likes to think it knows something and then just immediately summarize it and doesn't really inquire below the surface very readily. And so the reason I love visual language is because it gives you an active tool to go below the surface and to see deeper into the nature of this crazy world that we are all sharing, you know. So here's I'm starting to set y'all up for what I call the games, okay? How's it going? Somebody show me a picture you just drew. Let me just see something. Because you know I have your name, so I can just straight up call on you, right? I mean, I said I wasn't mean, but I definitely am mandatory volunteer. I volunteer people. Do y'all know that word? Thank you. Somebody did it. Awesome. Antonio, I need to see something from you. Beautiful. Yes. And you guys, can y'all see each other? You can, right? So check out each other's stuff. It's this beautiful universal language that is native to all of us. Thank you. It's awesome. Yes. Okay. So bless you for like keeping me stimulated, because my mind, I can feel my brain going into dream time. So please keep me together. So these are what I call thinking distortions. Okay. So when I was speaking earlier about the mind, the powerful piece about the mind is that it recognizes patterns. The shadow side of pattern recognition is that we don't see nuance, and we often lean into these things called thinking distortions. They're sort of extreme points of view that are not tracking with reality. So the two games we're going to play are just like little, they're fairly quick. They can be fairly quick activities to get you to expand your perception and think outside of whatever you were stuck in. All right. So black and white thinking is binary thinking. It means that you think that's like a hero or a villain, or it's an either or it's a yes or a no, and there's really no in between. And that also often can be very frustrating for us. And catastrophizing, like raise your hand if you even know immediately what I mean, like making a catastrophe out of something that actually has positive things, but we can't see them, right? The brain has a preference actually for negative information for the purposes of safety. And then fortune telling. So I only picked 3. So you guys don't have to know all of these, but these are the 3 that the games are focused on. Oh, and I see Lorraine's here too. What's up, Lorraine? So you're stayed up late too. So fortune telling is the other one where we think we know what's going to happen. So we like predict what's going to happen, and we convince ourselves that it's real what's going to happen. And then we have like a sort of downward spiraling around what's going to happen. Like with climate change, people just completely like go into their dark spirals, and then they have we don't know how to find them anymore. You know, it's like bad times. So these are the 3. I'm going to give y'all like an activity to break yourself out of that pattern. So let me ask y'all this. I'm going to take a moment to look at the chat function, because I have just downloaded a lot of information very quickly, right? Antonio, I know catastrophizing is so common nowadays. I actually think that the second activity that we do is going to be, you can use it for the rest of your life. Let me just put it that way. Yes. Does this work with note taking and digesting concepts? Absolutely. So Rebecca Chen asked a great question. Thank you. About visual thinking and does it work with note taking? 100%. So that is note taking is not necessarily about having what I call a thought experiment. Visual note taking is about finding, like tuning in to auditory content and then translating that content into visual language, what I often call info doodling. And so it's an integration of language and numbers and color and shapes and so forth. And that's actually a very, very powerful practice for the brain. And I recommend it for all students, and I actually teach workshops, and a lot of my friends teach workshops around that. So that's a great question. How does it differ from sketchnoting? Another awesome question. So there's some sketchnoters. Word. Awesome. So gaming and visual thinking are different from sketchnoting. And I think you're going to see, so Shiwan, you're going to see how it's different from sketchnoting, because sketchnoting is typically small scale, and it's also, it's akin to visual note taking or visual journaling. They're all in the same family. There's Venn diagrams, and the sketchnoting is not about purposeful thought experimentation. And tomorrow I actually have a workshop on game storming, and that's about linking thought experiments together in order to get to a goal. So they're different practices, different techniques. Yeah, and mind mapping, and actually Dominique, perfect segue, because mind mapping is going to be relevant for the game we're about to play. Okay, so check it out. It may or may not, but it can be. All right. So are y'all ready? Do you have your materials? You don't have to have an index card. I just got enamored with a scan of my index card and wanted to use it, but you don't have to. But be sure you're prepared. And also I realized my clock disappeared, so I have no idea what time it is. Okay, awesome. Raising your hand. And so Junhao and Sylvia, y'all are tracking the chat, correct?
Yes, that's right. We are checking it.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much, because I think there's probably some really good students here, so I would love to know. All right, so and also, are y'all drawing, Sylvia and I know you have other jobs.
Yes, I'm definitely in.
Awesome. So here's the first thing I want you to draw, okay? This is a game I invented. I like to invent games. It's called Hidden Variables. And you can draw any fruit in the middle or any food. You know, it doesn't even have to be food, but let's just stay in that category for now. And then draw some arrows around it, but you don't have to draw X. You don't have to draw the variables. So the B, C, Y, A, X, you don't have to draw those or the title. Just draw in the middle of your page the strawberry. And then I'm going to chat you. I'm thinking that I'm going to chat you some sort of stimulus. Okay, perfect. All right. So in the chat box, you'll see that there's multiple categories of reality, really. And the task at hand, and this is a fairly simple game, but it actually can get very sophisticated pretty quickly, depending on how much time I give you. So the other request I'm going to ask you, Junhao, whenever I ask for, I'm going to give them 3 minutes to do this, and you could play music if you wanted to, if that's easy to do. Okay. So what I want y'all to do is just start to parse all of the elements that make it possible. Yes, Kaijun, you draw any fruit you want. Put a dragon fruit, but don't get lost in drawing the fruit. Just pick a fruit, and a kiwi is kind of fun. Pineapples are cool, big fan. But don't get lost in the fruit drawing. Okay, just draw the quick and dirty version. And so the inquiry here is, what are as many variables as you can possibly think of in the 3 to 4 minutes I'm going to give you that make it possible for you to have a strawberry, okay, or a dragon fruit, or a pineapple, or a kiwi. Just around the strawberry, shoot as many arrows off as you want. This is called a hub and spoke model. You can do a mind map if you know what that is, but just take 3 minutes and think about all of these little layers. And I'll put this in the chat again, because I know it disappears fast, that make it possible for one single piece of fruit to be on your plate, or in your mouth, or in your belly. And I'm going to put those variables again. So I'm going to read them out loud for those of you who aren't reading the chat. So social variables, like your family goes to the grocery store to acquire fruit, right? Industrial, biological, evolutionary, economic. And I just made up these variables, right? But these are just categories. Linguistic, chemical, emotional, agricultural, electrical. I just made those up, but I just want you to start considering all of the hidden variables that normally would not be available for your perception that make it possible for you to eat a piece of fruit, okay? So take 3 minutes. And Junhao, could you play music or no?
Yeah, we can. We're going to try to play some background music now.
Okay, and then I'll bring everybody back at 11:27.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I think we are unable to share while you're sharing your slides. So we can't really.
Oh, okay. You want me to escape?
Sure. Okay.
Like so.
Hold on. I think you have to stop your screen share. Then we can share.
For music?
Okay, thank you so much. Fantastic.
That's cool, because I'll just admire people's faces while they're working.
Okay, great. Yeah, here you go. Some music.
Thanks. Thank you. And if you get stuck, just go back to that list in the chat, okay? Because there literally are almost infinite, if not infinite, variables, okay? 60 seconds. Okay, that was a really quick one. Thank you. So then you guys just give me some reflections, like take a little bit of time to reflect on what you created and notice what's happening or what you might be experiencing or learning from that activity. What kind of way of thinking can you unstick from just this simple visual thinking activity? What do you notice? There's no right answer. And also, if you guys are probably shy in terms of like the size of this group, but you can actually unmute and just talk to me if you want. That might be like too wild and crazy, but you're totally welcome to do it. Or you can write in the chat. Yeah, Jianfa. So she put a great list. Macro and micro thinking. Wonderful. Yeah, that's right. Yes, trying to associate and link up. A fruit association. Yeah. Appreciation of how many people are involved. There's in my community, there's this expression we use, 72 laborers gave us this food. So it's like you'd start to notice. Lorraine became the strawberry. She saw it from the point of view of the strawberry. I love it. Yes, supply chain. Yes, thinking out of the box. Connections you never thought of before. That's right. Rosalind didn't know how much she could think about one simple watermelon. I mean, you know, it's like, oh my God, look at this beautiful thing sitting right here. And look at all the ways that it had to, all the things it had to traverse to come to be together, you know, connections to the obvious and not obvious. Yes, beautiful. Mindfulness and thankfulness for nature's wisdom, love, creating links. Yeah. Munying, yes, absolutely. How much we take for granted, right? So the scarcity mentality, I think it's very easy for us to perceive that we don't have enough or that we don't actually occupy much abundance. But when you start to really deeply look at, and you can do that in a visual thinking way very quickly, you start to understand this net, this interconnected net that we're a part of. And yeah, from different perspectives. Kiwi is my favorite fruit too. Yeah. A durian. Yes, durians are that gum juicy fruit is based on the durian fruit. I don't know if y'all knew that. I learned that one time. So you kind of get the idea, right? It's like these are things that you typically take for granted. And as soon as you draw it and you start to actually plot it, and then if I gave you 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you would start to understand how deep it goes in order for something to emerge. And so there's actually one of you, Snow, has this wonderful quote on there that says, enlightenment is when a wave realizes it's the ocean. So it's like, that these things are occupied inside of that bigger fabric, and then they emerge, and then we get to interact with them and experience them. And often we don't slow down long enough to notice how wonderful that actually is, even in the smallest little thing, like a coffee bean. You know, I mean, what would I do without a coffee bean? I should probably work on that addiction problem. But so yes, the ecosystem of players, deeper thinking. Perfect. So y'all get the idea, right? And it's so simple. And look at all of the output that comes from such a simple provocation, what I call a provocation. Ben, yes, yay to coffee, bless coffee all the time. Okay, so awesome. So that's really helpful. Thank you guys for participating. And now I have this other one, okay, because that was just me wanting to prime you into starting to just open your mind around like drawing something simple and creating a little visual structure and thinking through the experiment. So here's the next one. And this one I also love. I need to share my screen again. So I'm going to lose your faces for a little while, which is so depressing, but I'll do it I'll take one for the team. Okay. So I made up this game too. I should probably get friends, right? Instead of just like sitting around making up games to play with my friends. I mean, so this one is awesome. Okay, it's called Anxious Event Horizon. All right, and I'm gonna set it up first. I'm gonna set the game up first, okay? But you can, in the meantime, draw this little structure, draw this visual structure, but don't populate it with any content other than what's on the screen. I see some participants have their hands raised, so I'm gonna see if there's anything urgent. Oh, there's 300 of you. That's a good solid number. There's gonna be 300. We're gonna cure many of you of this anxiety around an event you might have coming up. Yeah, how's that sound? Okay, so y'all are drawing. Oops, I'm not supposed to see that one. That's a secret. That's a secret slide. There. So just this. Okay, so I'm gonna set this up with a story. Okay, personal story. And also Junhao and Sylvia, I'm segueing chat back to you because I don't have it on my screen anymore. Cool, thank you. So I want you to think of something in your future that is causing you a little bit of stress or anxiety. It can be something simple. It doesn't have to be like really like climate change, you know, like maybe not go there, but something that is a little bit stressful, like you have to write an email that you don't want to, or you have to go to a meeting you don't particularly want to, and so it's just causing a little bit of duress. So just think about what that activity is and then write that in the top below that anxious event horizon. Just write the name of the event, you know. And again, this is anonymous, so you don't have to share the content with other people if you don't want to. It's no problem. Oh, cool. I'm opening my chat. That's okay. Okay. All right. And so as you can imagine, the next activity is to do what's the worst thing, the thing that is causing you to dread, the worst thing that could happen. Populate that, and underneath, like in the general area of the one on the left, you can write and draw if you're so inclined, and then do that for the best thing. Okay, so just take like 60 seconds. Don't overthink it, but just take 60 seconds. Worst thing that could happen, best thing that could happen. Okay. Yeah, talking in front of everyone. Perfect example. Perfect example, Maureen. Thank you. Right? Putting on weight. I mean, who didn't? I mean, 32 pounds during COVID, just for the record, right here. So done and done. Oh, attending a Zoom with strangers. It's so stressful. I know it's so stressful. So I hope you all feel safe enough to participate. Yes. So we're pretty good at finding things that cause us anxiety, and we can pretty immediately click to that. And then worst thing and best thing, okay? And then I'm going to tell you a story that will help facilitate you playing this game next, okay? And again, don't pick something that's really activating unless you are up for that kind of challenge. So I'm going to tell you a story about my anxious event, okay? I have worked for myself for 15 years and had recently was kind of recruited to work for a company, not internally, but like for a long enough time where I couldn't work for myself anymore. I'd be working for a pretty good sized company. And you might think that that would be like a good thing, but what happened in my mind was I went out completely into the spiral of the worst thing. I was like, oh no, you know, I'm going to have a boss and that boss is going to suck. And like, I'm not going to have like a good team. And then I'm not going to be able to be successful. And then I won't be able to prove that it wasn't only my fault. And then I'm going to like fail at the whole thing. And then I'm going to have shut my business down. So then my business will fall apart. And then I will like end up on the street and be homeless. I mean, you can see right there, just all the way down. And I really couldn't think of any other, I mean, I'm not kidding. I couldn't think of anything, anything good that would happen other than a regular paycheck, which is nice. But so I got the worst thing down pretty solid, pretty easy to do. And then, but I knew that this was an algorithm of the mind that was moving me into the place of having no nuance around the actual nature of reality, which is the worst thing is probably not going to happen. And the best thing would have been like, oh, I can't even think of the best thing because it took me so long to think of even one good thing. But the best thing would have been like, oh, the team was amazing. The work was super creative and fascinating. We were helpful for a lot of people. We ended up working together for so long that, you know, it went into 2 years. Like there's a scenario there. But the truth about reality is what? What is the truth about reality? That there's always, it's generally in between, okay? It's typically in between. So your task in this activity is to play with other possibilities. So that's not the worst thing or the best thing. It's probably going to be something in between. And there's so many in between options, right? And so an in between option for me would have been, well, I had some team members that were amazing and some that were really hard, you know, and that's the more likely truth. So for this one, I'm going to give you actually like 5 to 6 minutes because you really got to push past the obvious. You got to start thinking about very fine-grained things that could happen that would be in between, okay? And if you get stuck, just chat me up or raise your hand, even though Maureen, I know that that's like your anxious event that you would have to talk in front of everyone. But if you feel compelled to, feel free. And then Junhao, if you would please turn the music on again, and I'm going to bring all of you back at 45 on the 45. And yes, the slides will be shared. And ask me anything in between, okay? And like just go, like use your imagination. Go as deep and wide as you can in terms of what else is possible, different scenarios, okay? And ask me anything in the chat while you're working. And then Junhao, I need to take my screen off, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. Will do. Let me know if y'all don't understand what the instructions.
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead to stop your sharing and then we'll play some music in the background.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Joe, to answer your question, the options can be, typically they are around the anxious event, but they can be around, if they're somehow connected to it, you can use those too. About 60 seconds left. Oh, I'm a minute late. Yeah. So awesome. The song ended right on time. Beautiful. Denial stage. Okay. So there was something that a woman named Rajani said that I really appreciated, which maybe a lot of you have experienced this in this activity. This is actually a pretty challenging activity. How many of you noticed that? Raise your hand if you noticed that it was hard. Not the people that have had their hand raised the whole time. It's hard, right? So Rajani spoke to that. I think it's Rajan or Rajani. that her brain, it felt like her brain was kind of actively resisting finding the options or seeing the options. So it was really tricky and I don't know if you even got any. So let me know if you did. Like Rajni. Oh, cool. Thank you, Rajni. So Rajni, I'm getting better. Yeah, you have to dig deep. Thank you. I did it perfect, Rajni. I'm gonna say it a few more times so I feel real good about it. Yeah, Beth, this was like therapy, right? It is like a little moment of like unsticking the mind, right? So that's why it's like it's really valuable. It can be a restorative activity to help us see more clearly. Because of those thinking distortions, we often do not see reality clearly at all. In fact, I would argue we almost never do. And so it's worthwhile, and it's a very quick activity to just start to plot a little possibilities spectrum where other things could happen. And in that way, start to regulate your nervous system and start to sort of train your mind into seeing a little differently. Some people, so Rebecca had a hard time confronting the negative options. That can happen too. And I think that probably those are the most salient for all of us anyway. So in that situation, Rebecca, what I would do is I would play a game called Flip It, where I would only focus on the positive possibilities and just do as many of those as conceivably possible. So these are all workable games. Cheryl said it forces you to analyze the situation. It does. It forces you to start thinking like, wait a second, I have a very, very limited point of view. I have kind of tunnel vision. So for me, when I was evaluating the possibility of getting a job, and I saw a lot of your work and your jobs, like leaving a job or starting a new job, are actually quite stressful. So you can start to plot all the wonderful varieties, because the truth is that you're going to have great experiences and terrible experiences and growth experiences and like, big challenges. And that's part of being alive. And so it helps us weather some of the entrance into new jobs when we start to think, oh, there's actually some great positive outcomes that I'm not even present to, right? So, but you have to ask the mind to try to do it, to use the imaginative possibility to make that available. And actually, there's a pretty strong neurological case that when you do visualize positive outcomes, it actually impacts the probability of them. So it's worth it. So Sylvia feels happy that she suddenly has a lot of options after all. Oh, that's so good. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. And when I invent games or play visual thinking activities, I don't anticipate the outcome. It's very different for many, many people. Certain kinds of activities can lead to more predictable outcomes, but a lot of them are surprising. Yeah. And so Dominic, the time limit. So that's right. So you can give yourself as much time as you want. If you wanted to do an activity like this for yourself later, give yourself 60 minutes and go bring that visual map to a friend and ask them to help you populate it. So don't only rely on yourself, or ask someone who's actually been through what you're about to go through, and then let them reflect on how it wasn't as terrifying as they thought it would be, or there were surprising outcomes that were helpful. So you can use these as participatory tools too. A mental well-being game. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the positive outcomes of this kind of thinking is that, and I think that's pretty true for a lot of visual thinking activity, which is why I love it so much, is that it has this wonderful quality of getting people interested, engaged, available, imaginative, creative, grounded. It has so many benefits, and it's the possibilities are endless. So, and you can use it for deep analysis and critical thinking, as well as like extreme blue sky imaginative thinking, So there's really no end to what's available. But I would just say, and yeah, I'm so happy that like most of you, it seemed to free up a little bit of potential that wasn't really available. Could the in-between options? Yes. So Lahari, the in-between options, a combo of best and worst? Absolutely. So for example, an in-between option for me, the absolute best and worst, is that yes, there are times when I actually do fail at a project at my job, the job that I might take. And through that failure, I learned something extremely useful. So, right. So it's something difficult, but from that difficulty, something great happened. So absolutely. I mean, that's the nature of a lot of reality. And yeah, flipping it. Oh, Ron, hi. Also, Shannon DeBaca, I saw that you're here too. So do visual thinkers see differently if we write in words or draw? I would say I don't know if I understand the question exactly, but I would say visual thinking allows you to see differently, right? So if you are exploring a concept linguistically, you're actually activating certain modalities of the mind that make certain types of information possible. And when you switch into visual language mode, you're asking the brain to do different networking, different work. And so it makes different insights available. And that's why I actually like to switch back and forth between visual language and language, because it makes my relationship with a topic much more robust and nuanced and sophisticated. So I do that on purpose. And I mean, so even when I'm writing a book or working on a book chapter, like I will switch back and forth between visual thinking, the structure, and then just writing just pure words, you know. So I know Sylvia's going to come back on at 11:55, I think, and do some closing. So we have a couple minutes. And I just wanted to add a little, y'all probably can't see my screen anymore, but I'm going to share it one last time and share one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite neurologists who happened to love that's the lesson of that last game, reality is pixelated. So try to find the places that help you feel better. And then this one, I don't know if you can see it. Is it big enough to see? Nothing is more wonderful or more to be celebrated than something that will unlock a person's capacities and allow them to grow and think. And I would add her and they. But that's how I feel about visual thinking, that it's such a powerful tool and it is so glorious and wonderful and endlessly creative that it's native to us, that it's a missed opportunity if we don't just dive in. So thank you all so much for coming and keeping me awake. It's like a big day, past my bedtime, way past. So, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. You're all invited to come to the game storming workshop tomorrow if you feel so inclined, if I didn't like freak you out with my therapeutic gaming. So yes. And then Sylvia, should I just like after you, I have one more.
Sure.
Minute.
Thank you, Sunny. I think all of us really enjoyed ourselves. Suddenly I realized that, from the worst thing that can happen and the best thing that can happen, I have a lot of options to play with, right?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. I hope everyone enjoying this very engaging session right here. And of course, I hope everyone have a lot of fresh insights and key takeaway, just like me too. All right. Now, before we come to the end of this webinar, we'll like to take this opportunity once again to thank our speaker, Miss Sunni Brown, for her insightful sharing. Can everyone put your hands up together and give her a big round of applause? Come on, Sunni, you're absolutely fabulous. Wow.